guys, Simply Betta here. This video was sponsored by you. You want to hear a secret? I was demonetized for like 9 months. Thanks, YouTube. Oops. Simply Betta's broke. Because I was demonetized for so long, I don't have any money to fund some of my upcoming projects that I want to do. So, do you want to buy some plants? I am selling some of my plants. Some of my homegrown Cryptolucens and Cryptowenti, and a variety of other plants. I grew it in my fish room very lovingly. There's no wholesalers or like reselling anything. $10 will get you a really nice portion of crypts. Very nice and healthy. $15 will get you an extra large portion for a limited time only while supplies last. SimplyBetta.com. Any sales, it's just gonna go straight towards the fish room and to funding some projects that are coming up soon. Also, at the end of my last video, because I was convinced like nobody was gonna watch it, I was like, comment best friends forever if you made it to the end. And I was shocked by how many best friends I actually have. So thanks guys, I appreciate it. Hearts. Hearts, 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 hearts. All right, it's vlog time. In my last vlog, I cleaned up my whole fish room and it felt really nice. I've been keeping it tidy, I've been keeping up on my chores, everything's going great. In this vlog, I'm remaking my live food cultures. Teeny, tiny little organisms that I raise specifically to feed fish. Why, Taylor, do you keep a bunch of live food cultures for your fish? Well, for a lot of species of fish, the fry are teeny tiny, right? They're little microscopic, little tiny eyelashes. Practically, you could barely see them. So when you raise tiny little microscopic fish fry, you need to feed them little tiny microscopic foods. In my case, I like to feed vinegar eels, paramecium, microworms, baby brine shrimp, and Grindal worms and white worms. So let's make some cultures. Let's start today with making some vinegar eels. What are vinegar eels? These are tiny little worm-like nematodes that you can culture in apple cider vinegar. I use these guys right when new Betta Fry become free swimming. They're a really good first food. Vinegar eels can swim around in the water column for days without dying. They're really, really easy to keep. They basically need no upkeep. They're really hard to mess up. That being said, I messed up. I had a stockpile of like gallons and gallons worth of vinegar eel cultures. And then I let them sit and I ignored them for so long. Usually they're fine when you ignore them, but I ignored them for so long that they evaporated down and I didn't really realize it was happening. And I think the environment just became unlivable and I lost most of my cultures. So don't be me. They're actually really hard to mess up. This is the number one easiest way that you can make a vinegar eel culture. Start with a container of apple cider vinegar. Don't get apple cider vinegar flavored vinegar. You want the real thing, and I buy unpasteurized. Just take your starter culture that I actually sell on my website, by the way, simplybetta.com, and just literally pour it in. Woo. That's all you have to do. Then cover the top, maybe with a little rubber band, and you're gonna have yourself a vinegar eel culture in no time. If you wanna step up your game a little bit, here's what some people do. They'll go get themselves some apple cider vinegar. They'll fill up a container halfway with water, and then, like so. Now we have some diluted apple cider vinegar. I'll put in 2 little apple chunks as a food source, and then I'll add my starter culture. Now I have 2 starter cultures for the price of 1. This way, if I deplete one, I still have the other one. It's great. It's all really easy. However, I don't keep things easy very much, do I? I want a lot of cultures, like gallons worth. Do you think I'm gonna go to the store and buy gallons of fancy apple cider vinegar for my worms? I'm gonna make it from scratch for pennies. I'll show you how. Pennies! Get yourself a jar. I'm using a really big one. It's like a gallon. You can use whatever size you want. You're gonna fill it up halfway with apples. It can be apple peels, apple cores, apple scraps, just whatever. I'm not gonna go out and buy apples either. I don't have apple money. I keep a bag in my freezer, and whenever I have like an apple core or a cutting my kids didn't eat or just a peel or whatever, I throw it in the bag. So I have a freezer bag full of apple scraps at all times. Doesn't everybody have that? Okay, I'm gonna fill it halfway. I used up like half of my stash. I'll have to go thieve some more apples before apple season ends. Now you need to add some sugar. For every gallon of water that you're putting in, use a cup of sugar. Or for every cup of water that you're putting in, add a tablespoon of sugar. You'll fill it up with water. Give it a good stir to get that sugar at the bottom. Now you're gonna add in your store-bought apple cider vinegar. Again, I use the unpasteurized kind because this will be your bacteria starter for making your vinegar. I just do a glug. To make sure that my apples stay below the surface of the water, I just put like a little container on top and I kind of sink down a little bit. Then I put a piece of paper towel on and a rubber band, and I'm done. I let this sit for like 3 or 4 weeks. Every now and then I'll give it a good stir, and that's it. That's literally it. This is gonna turn into a gallon of free baby fish food. Editing Taylor here. Be sure to do this. Be sure to label your vinegar eel cultures because you don't want to be using this in your salad dressing. Label it. This is gonna ferment for like 3 or 4 weeks. When it seems done, I'll strain out the apples and then I'll add in my vinegar eel starter culture. Don't forget to cover it. It will be teeming with vinegar eels in no time. I've done this a few times now over the past few months, so here's my stash of vinegar eel cultures. The next live food culture I'll be making is microworms. This is what I introduced next for my baby betta fish. Microworms don't swim around in the water column like vinegar eels do. They'll sink to the bottom, and they'll die if they don't get eaten in a few hours. So microworms are a food that you feed sparingly, and you just feed enough to get eaten like within a few hours. That way they're not dying on the bottom and just rotting and polluting your water. That's the only downside of microworms, but they make a really good food source. Just be careful about feeding too much. And they're really easy to keep. I use the oatmeal method because I just think it's the easiest. This culture is getting a little old. I'm gonna make a new one. Here's some plain oatmeal in a bowl. You can microwave it, you can cook it on the stove top, it does not matter. There we go, hot. The consistency doesn't matter, who cares? I like to use a clear container because I can see them crawling up the sides, and I can tell when I can harvest them by swiping them off the sides of my container. I'm a little low on clear containers at the moment, so I'll use this empty coffee container. They won't mind. A couple air holes in the lid. Once the oatmeal cooled down, I just plopped a spoonful of my old culture into the new one, and it won't take long at all until I have tons of microworms. Just an FYI, microworms do have a bit of a smell to them. A culture will smell like a fermenting oatmeal, and if you let it go for too long, like if it starts to get a little bit rancid, it smells like actual death. It smells so bad. Someone told me a while ago, told me a story in the comments section, how they had like this nasty old death-smelling microworm culture, and they were going to remake it, and they were carrying it like down the stairs, and they tripped and they spilled it all over the carpet. Oh, that's the worst story. Who was that? The next live food culture I'm remaking is my Grindal Worms. Grindal Worms are such a good food source to have if you raise fish. I like to start feeding them as soon as fish are big enough to eat them. Usually that's after fry have been eating baby brine shrimp for a little while. I try to take fish off of baby brine shrimp as soon as I can, because if you overfeed BBS, baby brine shrimp, your betta fish can actually develop swim bladder problems. If you overfeed, you can damage your fish. So I only have this one little culture. Let's make another one. For this substrate, I like to use coconut coir, or plain potting soil works just fine. I start with some nice damp soil or coir, and then I bake it for a while in the oven to make sure that I'm not bringing in any pests or mites or bugs or whatever. You can also microwave it in little batches. I threw it in the oven for a couple hours at like 200 or 250. Your house will smell like hot, wet dirt if you do this, but it's worth it. Steamy. I gave it some time to cool down, and now I'll transfer some of it to another container. Drill a few air holes. I'll make another container for my white worms. Once my substrate's cooled down, I will add some Grindal worms. I harvest from my old culture, I swirl them around in some water, and I stare at them for a minute to make sure there's no hitchhikers or mites in there. Then I'll add them right on top of a little food source in my new culture. The culture will take a little while to start producing a lot of worms, but it will, and they will be scrumptious. I did the same thing for my next culture I'm making, my white worms. White worms are bigger and juicier than Grindal worms, so they're great to have on hand, not just for like adult betta fish or like bigger juveniles, but also a myriad of other fish species that many fish keepers keep. White worms are great to have overall. They're the exact same as Grindal worms care-wise, except they prefer cooler temperatures. So I keep them in this tiny, tiny fridge that is usually in my fish room. Here's the thing though. It's time for me to upgrade my dedicated worm fridge. Dedicated worm fridge. That's a weird sentence. I can set the temperature. I usually keep it around 63 or so. It keeps my white worm cultures nice and cold and thriving. Those are little bits of dog food. That's what I feed them. You can probably see just from this footage here that they're a lot bigger than Grindal worms. This little fridge is the perfect size for just keeping a couple cultures, which is great for my fish room. But for a while now, I've been wanting something a little bit larger, because I really want to be able to produce enough cultures to be able to sell on my website, and this is just for me. I want space for more worms. Boom, check it out. Isn't this a cool fridge? I found it on Facebook Marketplace. It's got a cool glass front. It's got some LED lights. I can hear it running. I like the lights so I can showcase all my worms and make my visitors jealous. The only downside to this is what came on the side. This big ol' ad on here. It's not really my vibe. It's not really the vibe I want to bring to the fish room. Let's see, can it peel off? Oh yeah. I'm using like all my weight. It took me like 10 minutes of my Mighty Mouse might to peel those horrible ads off. Yes! That's so satisfying. This was so hard to peel off. I scrubbed the gross fridge out really well and I bleached it. This was sitting in someone's garage as their beer fridge and it was kind of gross. The next live food culture I'm remaking is Paramecium. I don't have a ton of experience using Paramecium as a food source like in the first few days, while fry are so tiny, but I've been testing it. There's certainly no harm in making sure that there are plenty of microorganisms in the water for the fry to eat. They're easy to care for. I sterilize jars, I boil water, I let it cool down. I add a few boiled wheat berries as a food source and a few specks of yeast, which I guess that's actually the food source. I add my Paramecium Aurelia starter culture and then I cover the jars with a surgical mask. It doesn't take long for the water to start looking like this, teeming with Paramecium. The nice part about keeping a pure culture like this is that it's so much more reliable than Infusoria, which I've had struggles with. There's one last thing. A long time ago, I swore I would never, ever, ever keep Daphnia ever again, because I was tired of failing and watching my cultures crash for unknown reasons. That being said, I am definitely trying again, just one more time. Not an intensive culture like I've done in the past, but I'm going to be adding them to my guppy grass tank. This is a mature planted tank. There's no fish in here. I feel like maybe keeping them in a mature planted tank is gonna work this time. Definitely, for sure, totally. It's worth a shot. I sure keep a lot of creepy crawly little things. If you're planning on breeding betta fish, you don't need all of these cultures. You could get away with just like vinegar eels or paramecium, microworms, and then baby brine shrimp, and then be able to fish how to eat pellets, like little micro pellets, as long as you're careful not to overfeed on baby brine shrimp or microworms. But I really like the versatility of having a lot of different things on hand for all the different growth phases, all the way up until your fish is full grown. Especially Grindal worms and white worms, they're so handy to have for so many different sized fry. It's really nice. It's also nice that these are all really low maintenance cultures, except Daphnia because I always kill them, but not this time. Definitely not. That's it for today's vlog. If you're looking for starter cultures, you can find them on my website, simplybetta.com. Pretty soon I'll have Grindal worms and white worms up there too. Also, I have a smattering of plants that I grow myself, No wholesalers, it's just me, and it's all going to my future projects. It'd be a great way to support my channel because I was demonetized for so long, but you know what? Just watching this video to the end is support enough. If you're one of those special people who made it all the way to the end, comment, cool worm fridge, because I know you are definitely as excited about this as I am. Have a great day, guys, and I'll see you next time.